Tonight on The ReidOut.
President Trump announces he's running for re-election, and shazam, and now we're going to pursue it. I mean, this is so. This is something that I think. It's obvious that this is a sham.
Shazam, fury of the Republicans as they launch an unrelenting attack on DA Alvin Bragg. Jim Jordan's House Judiciary Committee is acting as Trump's Capitol Hill legal team. Also tonight, pack your lunches. Tomorrow is Marjorie Taylor Greene's insurrection field trip to celebrate the people who trashed the Capitol, beat police officers, tried to hunt down members of Congress, and overthrow the legitimately elected government. Plus, the staggering increase in book banning across the country, targeting more than 2,500 book titles last year alone. And what's being done to fight back against right-wing censorship. Good evening, everyone. I'm Jason Johnson in for Joy Reid, and we begin tonight with a curveball in the Trump indictment watch. The Manhattan grand jury investigating the Stormy Daniels hush money scheme met today to hear a different matter. But Trump did what he always does when the walls are closing in. He posts some all-caps racist and anti-Semitic bile on social media, calling Manhattan District Attorney Alvin Bragg a, quote, Soros-backed animal who just doesn't care about right or wrong, no matter how many people are hurt, adding, quote, this is no legal system. This is the Gestapo. This is Russia and China, but worse, which is weird because I thought Trump loved Russia. In addition to blowing right past dog whistling, calling a black district attorney an animal, and invoking George Soros, an accusation rooted in anti-Semitism, Trump also accused Bragg of doing the work of anarchists and the devil, and in a nod to the kind of violence he's already tried to incite by telling his supporters to go out and protest. He shared a photo showing him holding a baseball bat next to a photo of District Attorney Bragg. And a clear indication that the pressure is getting to him, Trump called for the removal of all of the officials behind the many investigations raining down on him. Not just Bragg, but also New York Attorney General Letitia James, investigating his business practices in a civil case. Fulton County, Georgia District Attorney Fani Willis, who is overseeing a probe in his plot to overthrow the 2020 election. And Special Counsel Jack Smith, and one of the matters Smith is overseeing, the Justice Department's criminal probe of the January 6th insurrection. Trump's lawyers were in court today asking a judge to stop former Vice President Mike Pence from testifying, the day after one of the lawyers representing Trump today, Evan Corcoran, lost a bid to avoid testifying in Smith's other probe into the Mar-a-Lago classified documents. Corcoran is expected to testify as early as tomorrow, and I'm sure we can expect more temper tantrums from Trump, since it's likely the Manhattan grand jury will meet on the hush money matter on Monday. Joining me now to discuss all of this is Jill Wine-Banks, who served as an assistant Watergate special prosecutor. She is co-host of the Sisters-in-Law and iGen podcast. Kurt Bardella, Democratic strategist and contributor to the LA Times and the best-dressed man on set today, and Maya Wiley, president of the Leadership Conference on Civil and Human Rights. Thank you all so much for joining me. I'm going to start with you, Maya. When I look at all these different cases that are raining down on the former twice impeached president, it always seems very obvious to me that even if, okay, today's not the day he's going to get arrested, maybe Friday isn't the day he's going to go, maybe Monday's not the day he's going to get arrested, but at some point, you have to realize that is one of these going to result in an actual arrest? Are they mostly just going to be fines? I can't imagine between the civil case and the criminal case and the federal treason cases, one of these doesn't result in him in an orange jumpsuit.
Well, let's be technical about this. First of all, it's very hard to imagine there is not an indictment somewhere at some point against Donald Trump. I say indictment because, as we know, there's plenty of public evidence that shows that there's some real cause to think he is going to be indicted as something. Mar-a-Lago being the latest, because when your lawyer is now said, no attorney-client privilege because we think there is a crime fraud exception. That's, in plain English speak, that means, no, baby, you've got a problem, and we think your lawyer has evidence of you potentially committing a crime. And you have a judge saying that. You have an appeals court saying yes, and actually rushing that to happen. So I just want to say that is very hard to imagine. And these mean two things. So indictment, just want to separate these. Indictment means he's going to face a jury.
Okay.
Whether he's arrested for it is a little bit different because there would have to be a decision about whether he should be held versus whether he could be free on his own recognizance until that trial. So I just want to separate that out. But we know orange matches.
I like the sound of that. Jill, I wanted to ask you this because, to me, one of the other concerns that I have whenever we hear about, again, all these trials, all these investigations, whenever there's a delay, right, I and many Americans out there start getting concerned that nothing's going to happen, right? Like, I never believed, I don't know why we gave Trump that much attention. I mean, he thinks he's going to get arrested on Tuesday. No one's going to do it on Tuesday because that's the day he said. But here we are 2 days later. The grand jury's met, but they didn't meet about doing something about Trump. Could that suggest that we could be days away from this indictment coming on, or could this just be another routine matter and we're still looking at something within the next couple of days?
We don't know exactly when it's going to happen. We don't actually even know if this was a delay. Only Donald Trump said he was going to be arrested. And I agree with Maya. There is not going to be an arrest as people think of arrest, which is him being handcuffed and perp walked. He will self-surrender. But that's a separate issue. So we don't know what the time schedule that the DA Bragg had set. DA Bragg is going on his own timetable. He's not going on any timetable that Donald Trump says to rile up his base. And with a Saturday Waco rally, that's what we should be worried about, even more than the protest that could happen whenever there is an indictment, whenever he has to come in and surrender and be fingerprinted and have a mugshot and DNA swab. Those will happen. I just don't see him being arrested.
Much as I would love to hear the Law and Order music when that happens, yes, we probably will be denied that opportunity. Kurt, here's the thing that gets me. So while all these things are raining down on Trump, it cannot be said enough. 99% of this is his fault. Like, I don't know, if you don't steal documents from the federal government, this doesn't happen. If you don't pay off, adult film stars, then maybe this doesn't happen. Also, if you don't try and overthrow the country, maybe you're not, a redneck, or however it is the old joke goes. But, these are things that Trump has caused on his own. But what's been fascinating to me is the same Republicans who were screaming, lock her up, and talking about the Clinton Foundation, talking about Hillary Clinton, are out there crying and complaining now. Let's play some sound from Lindsey Graham begging for Trump's freedom, and we'll get your thoughts on the other side.
I'm begging and urging this prosecutor, don't do this to the country. Don't jeopardize the rule of law for the nation as a whole. There's a better way to do this. We'll have an election about Trump. To prosecute President Trump in light of everything you've just said would be weaponization of the legal system. It would set a bad precedent in the country. It would come back to haunt us for decades. And I hope and pray they do not do this in New York.
Now, the weaponization of the legal system, Maya, correct me, you're the lawyer here. I believe that's called the Bill Barr method, where you turn the whole legal system into your personal use. But, Kurt, what do you think about it? I mean, look, they're going to defend Trump no matter what. Right. But to hear that sort of thing from Lindsey Graham just seems ridiculous to me.
Well, it's just downright unsportsmanlike when people that are in justice prosecute criminals. Wow, what is wrong with the world that something like that would happen? I mean, Lindsey Graham has shown over many years now that this is a guy who just has no self-respect at all, and he's willing to deface himself on national television to defend someone that we all know he can't stand. If you go back and look at the things that he said about Donald Trump back in the 2016 campaign. I mean, that's the thing about all of these Republicans, from Kevin McCarthy to the folks over on the propaganda networks to Lindsey Graham and Ted Cruz, every single one of them is on the record at some point or another saying they hate this guy. Yeah. And yet here they are expecting all of us to believe that they really care about Donald Trump's freedom. Nobody is rooting for Donald Trump to go to jail more than these Republicans. I guarantee you they are secretly hoping that the justice system does the dirty work for them so that they don't ever have to actually take a stand against their leader. And it's just crazy politics. I mean, think about this. These are people right now who've boxed themselves into a corner in which they have to defend someone who will likely be charged with multiple crimes, from paying off porn stars to subverting democracy to trying to overthrow an election. And the so-called party of law and order would have us believe that these are all things that they should be defending. It just doesn't add up, and it's terrible politics. And they're going to add on top of that, as you put it, a field trip to go check out some insurrectionists. Like, what are they doing?
Yeah.